We are here at the end of August, and so you know what that means. It's time to take a look at what we've been reading in August, our end of the summer books.
It was quite an interesting mix. We had the Pope, we had historical fiction, a bit of a mystery, all kinds of things. So let's go ahead and get started.
Our Catholic read-along book for the month of August was this one, When the White Smoke Clears, a guide to Pope Leo XIV's early days. And in case you're wondering, as of today when we're filming, he has been the Pope for 113 days, and that's really not very long.
And this book is from Ascension, and it's done by a variety of different authors, many of whom you know and love, like Jeff Cavins, Father Josh Johnson, and Father Mike Schmitz.
So I don't know what we were expecting when we bought this book. We thought it would mainly be a biography of Pope Leo XIV, and there is that, but there is a whole lot more to this book than just his biography.
There is a history of the papacy, including the other Pope Leos. There is commentary on Pope Leo XIII's writings. There's a history of the Augustinian order and just all kinds of different stuff.
So that's all great, but to be honest, there were things that we really liked about the book, and then there were a couple of things that we wish could have maybe been different. For instance, we thought some of the material was repetitive in places. Every chapter had a different author, and they did tend to cover some of the same ground.
There was also a whole chapter on the papal coat of arms, which was very interesting, but we would have appreciated a picture to go along with it instead of just the descriptions.
So we know that a color picture probably was way beyond the budget for a paperback book, or maybe there were copyright issues, we don't know, but it just would have been nice as a visual reference.
But there were a lot of things that we loved about the book. We had a couple of favorite chapters, including the first chapter, which was written by the Ascension team and gave a really nice biography of Pope Leo.
It was really interesting to read about all the different things that he's done and all the different jobs that he's had. You can really see the hand of God moving in his life to prepare him for the papacy. It was just really cool.
We also liked chapter 8, written by Katie McGrady, where she talks about the media coverage of Pope Leo and the Pope Leo fever going on, and how we can't believe everything that we see and read.
She suggested that if you want to know the truth about what he's doing and saying and writing, then you should go right to the Vatican website, because that is your best source. Don't trust what other people are commenting or saying or doing in their blogs or videos or whatever. And we think that's really sound advice.
And she also said to give him some time and space to do his thing and get his bearings before passing any judgment. She actually recommended just reading, watching, listening for a whole year before making any sort of comments or critiques on anything going on.
And then chapter 9, written by Father Josh Johnson, we really like that one too. He talked about how you can support Pope Leo, or really any priest, with your prayers and sacrifices.
And he gives different prayers that you can say. He suggests different ways you can pray, and also suggests different type of sacrifices you can make.
So overall, even though the book wasn't quite what we were expecting, we did really like it and thought it was very good.
So if you've read this one, let us know your thoughts down in the comments.
One of my Catholic goals for 2025 is to read more of the writings of G.K. Chesterton, so I was happy to find this book, The ABCs of Christian Life, at our church library. It's the writings of G.K. Chesterton from A to Z. It's a sampler pack of essays from all of his different books. And the foreword is by Peter Kreeft, or however you say it. So this one was a lot of fun. I love his writing. You have to do mental gymnastics to keep up with him. I love his sense of humor. In one of the essays, he's talking to a publisher, and the publisher tells him, you know, a man has to believe in himself to succeed. And Chesterton argues with him and says, well, what about Napoleon? What about Caesar? They believed in themselves, and they still came to tragic ends. So then the publisher asks, well, who should men believe in? And Chesterton's response is so funny. He says, well, I'll just go home and write a book to answer that question. In another essay, he talks about the joys of lounging in bed said how great it is to just laze around with nothing to do, and he says it would only be better if you could have a giant colored pencil long enough to draw on the ceiling while you were lying there. So he's definitely funny. My only issue with his writing is that I found he's a little bit like St. Paul. Sometimes his sentences are really, really long, and so I could not read this and understand it very well at night when I was tired. I had to read it more during the day when I was mentally alert and I could keep up with him. However, I did highly enjoy it, and if you're a Chesterton fan and you want to get a good feel for all his writings, I definitely recommend this one.
So my book for today is The Black Friars by Erin McAfee. And this one takes the spot of our mystery thriller for the month of August. It's fairly short, it's only 150 pages, and it follows Father Thomas, who is a Dominican friar who lives and teaches in Oxford. And the story opens when the body of a student is discovered. And at first I think it was a suicide, but then different things start coming to light. Father Thomas hears a very disturbing confession. And so you see him sort of start to unravel the mystery of what's actually going on there. So I think if you like mystery and thriller, you will enjoy this book, especially if you don't mind those books being a little bit darker, because there is some intense stuff going on in this book, especially at the end. Now, I do have to say there is a little bit of language in this book, maybe just 2 or 3 instances of cursing, but it is present, so there's your heads up about that. But it was very interesting. The author does teach about the history of the Dominican friars in Oxford, which was very interesting to learn about. So we will definitely be keeping an eye and seeing what else he publishes. But this one would be a great book for the upcoming spooky reading months.
This month, I also indulged in some fun historical fiction. This one, The Angel on the Square by Gloria Whalen. It's been on my TBR pile forever, and I decided it is now or never for this book. It is the story of young Katya, who is growing up in St. Petersburg right around the time of World War I and the Russian Revolution. Her mother is a lady-in-waiting to the Empress Alexandra, so Katya is living a life of luxury, but she does have a really good friend who sees the suffering of the people and wants things to change. So I thought this one started off a little slow, but I quickly got swept up in all the fascinating details of life in Russia during that time. You know, that's always been, I'll just admit it, a kind of historically fuzzy time period for me, but this one just made it all clear, you know, what everyone was doing, Russia, the Tsar, Rasputin, the revolutionaries. I got a good grip on them from this book, and I highly enjoyed it. So if you like historical fiction or you enjoy reading about the world wars, then I can highly recommend this one. I'm so glad I finally got to read it. So my next book is Matthew Kelly's latest book, which is called The Forgotten Way, the St. James Master Plan. What is that all about? So the book starts with the story of Matthew Kelly at a dinner party, and he's having dinner. There's an older priest there, and the priest just casually mentions, hey, you know what? You could actually become a saint just by governing your speech. And the conversation just rolled on, and Matthew Kelly said, wait a minute, what did you just say? And it turns out that the way to sainthood, the St. James Master Plan from St. James the Younger, is becoming a saint by learning to control your tongue. And the book is full of all different kinds of tips and hints on how you can learn to control your tongue. So my favorite tip from the book was a verse from the book of Genesis that Matthew Kelly gives us to go home and meditate on. It is Genesis chapter 7, verse 5, which says, Noah did all the Lord God commanded him to do. So Matthew Kelly says, repeat that verse 100 times a day out loud and see if it changes your life. As with many Matthew Kelly books, there is some repetition in this one from his other books, but I think this one is a really good read, especially in our day and age when people are really careless with their speech. They just say whatever on their mind, they just put it out there, especially online in the comment boxes. People really don't consider how is my speech going to affect someone else. Finally, this is a short book. You could read it in just an hour or two. And again, I think it's time well spent. And I keep thinking of Noah doing all that the Lord God commanded him to do. So last I have a very short book from Father Mike's Sunday homily series. It's called Are You Saved? The Catholic Understanding of Salvation from Ascension Press. So I live in the South, and that is a question that I get asked fairly often. Are you saved? My answer to that is yes, of course I'm saved. I was saved at my baptism. As Father Mike points out, though, there's a lot more to it than that, and the correct answer is actually I was saved at baptism. I am currently being saved by God's grace, and I hope to be saved by God's grace in the future as well. It's not just a one and done thing, it's an ongoing process. I especially liked how he walks you through the book of St. James and all that James has to say about faith and works. This is such an interesting read for me, and I really can't explain it all as well as Father Mike does in this book. It's a very short book. Again, you could read it in just a couple of hours. So if you haven't ever read any of this series, I highly recommend it. This was a 5-star read for me.
So that was a look at all the books that we read in the month of August.
So as always, let us know what you read. If you've read a different book about Pope Leo, let us know down in the comments. How do you think it compares to this one? There were a lot that were published about him right away, so we're curious.
So we hope you enjoyed today's video. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.